It was the worst terrorist act in American history, and Timothy McVeigh could now be sentenced to death.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 horrific crimes in which the perp just killed randomly and wantonly with a complete disregard to demographics.
And as we leave you tonight, we want to remind you about those who died yesterday, to remember who they are.
The Boston Marathon bombing.
You heard her mother earlier, really unable to even speak. She was so broken by grief in losing her daughter. Caring, loving, daddy's little girl.
By their very natures, bombs are not meant to discriminate. They are meant to explode and cause as much death and damage as humanly possible, regardless of who's in the immediate vicinity. The Boston Marathon is a huge and open event. Anyone can come and watch, including families with young kids, tourists, locals, anyone.
And of course, as we all remember today, Martin Richard, Lingzi Liu, and Crystal Campbell died at the bombing scene. Officers Sean Collier and Dennis Simmons died from injuries they suffered during the manhunt for the bombers.
And when the two bombs went off on April 15, 2013, these people were targeted, resulting in 3 deaths and nearly 300 injuries. Incredible violence aside, the bombing also had a huge psychological impact on the country, leaving people paranoid about future attacks and shattering the illusion that big public gatherings were inherently safe.
Those 3 people all lost their lives in the course of what they thought was a regular, perhaps special day in their lives. They were people, Americans, someone from China, with friends and families who love them and will miss them for the rest of their lives.
Columbine.
Today, it's been 25 years. We pause to remember the 12 students and 1 teacher killed at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999.
It's a myth that the Columbine shooters were targeting their tormentors, and this so-called motive has long been debunked. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were very angry teenagers, and their motive was not revenge, but a sick desire to cause as much pain as possible and leave a lasting impression. This played out during the events of Columbine, which was actually intended to be a far more destructive bombing.
I love talking about Rachel as a sister. She was feisty and fun and sarcastic and silly. She also had an old soul and could be very deep and thoughtful. I wish I could have seen who Rachel became.
The 2 planted propane bombs in the school, but these failed to go off, forcing them to change their plans. Harris and Klebold then stormed the school with guns and attacked indiscriminately, killing students completely at random and whoever happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Cassie's parents, Brad and Misty, wrote that Cassie had a sweet, loving, and accepting spirit, and she loved her church youth group activities. Cassie dreamed of becoming an obstetrician, wanting to make the world a better place by delivering babies.
The Bath School disaster.
90 years ago today, the worst act of school violence in American history happened right here in mid-Michigan.
Occurring on May 18, 1927, the Bath School disaster has been somewhat forgotten, despite being the deadliest school massacre in American history. The perpetrator was Andrew Kehoe, a disgruntled local farmer and school board member. Kehoe had recently lost his position as the board's treasurer and was heavily in debt, resenting the local property taxes that were raised to fund the construction of the school, so he blew it up.
The blast can be heard for miles around. Bath locals and nearby farmers rushed to the scene of devastation, many assuming there must have been a gas leak.
A massive explosion rocked the north wing of the school at 8:45 a.m. Kehoe then arrived at the panicked scene with a truck full of dynamite and shrapnel. It too exploded, killing Kehoe and several bystanders. In the end, 58 people were injured and 45 more were dead, including 38 children.
It was hard to have to look at, and Mom and I we saw that when we drove down to school to see what was happening.
The 2017 Las Vegas shooting.
You should be here. You can hear Brendan Stewart's love for country music in this performance of the song You Should Be Here, the cover that went viral after he was killed shielding his girlfriend.
History was made on October 1st, 2017, when the deadliest mass shooting committed by an individual occurred in Las Vegas. Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowd of over 20,000 concertgoers who were harmlessly attending the Route 91 Harvest Festival on the Strip. He took pot shots at the massive crowd from his hotel room window, targeting no one in particular.
The 58 victims who lost their lives in Vegas came from all across the country and Canada. At least 30 of them called California home.
60 people died as a result of the shooting, and a staggering 867 were injured, either directly from the shots or in the ensuing panic. Despite an extensive investigation by the FBI, no clear motive was ever determined, further deepening the mystery and the ultimate fear of no one being safe.
We remember now some of the victims of the tragedy in Las Vegas. They were mothers and fathers, siblings and teachers, veterans and colleagues.
The Aurora theater shooting.
Today's the hardest of all days, and so I felt like I needed to be here.
Megan Sullivan's older brother Alex would have turned 29 today. 2 years ago, he wanted to celebrate at the movies.
This attack is ripped straight from a nightmare. On July 20th, 2012, about 400 people were packed into a Colorado movie theater to watch The Dark Knight Rises. It was a simple night out for many, the audience containing couples, families, and friends. Unfortunately, they were all the target of James Egan Holmes, who set off tear gas and shot randomly into the trapped crowd.
I had to explain to her, Daddy wasn't coming. She'd cry, and then she'd stop and said, well, Daddy promised to come for my birthday. Is he coming?
Holmes' notebook claims that he chose a theater for its simplicity and audience density. He didn't care who he hit, he just wanted a high body count. When the shooting stopped, 13 were dead and 70 more were injured. Included in the body count was the 6-year-old daughter of Ashley Moser and her unborn child, as Moser miscarried after being shot.
Ashley Moser was shot 3 times by the killer. She's lost part of her lung, and while she gained some use of her hands and her arms, she still carries a bullet in her spine. It's not coincidental that hers was the story and the experience prosecutors wanted the jury to contemplate as it takes this long weekend.
The Kangju Uprising.
Based on the testimonies of some 200 people, the committee has revealed at least 18 more cases of civilian massacres committed by the military junta.
It wasn't long ago that South Korea was a dictatorship. General Chun Doo-hwan seized power and declared martial law in May 1980, shutting down universities and banning political activity. This led to a civilian uprising in the city of Gwangju, but the Korean military entered the city in a deadly assault on the morning of May 27th. They violently squashed the protest, with the estimated number of deaths ranging from 600 to over 2,000. Victims were massacred indiscriminately and included the likes of young students, hospital staff, the elderly, and bystanders who were caught in the crossfire. These bodies were then buried in mass graves, and the government framed the uprising as a communist rebellion, silencing the victims for many years.
Since then, there were many attempts to shed light on what really happened during the tragic events of the Kangju Uprising, but the facts and truth related to the event still remain elusive.
The Manchester Arena bombing.
We will observe a minute's silence in honor of the 22 who were killed in the attack.
This act of terrorism had a particularly devastating impact because of who it targeted. Thousands of young children and teenagers who were attending an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. Shortly after the show ended, an Islamic terrorist detonated a device in the arena's foyer, killing 22 people and injuring over 1,000.
Kelly Brewster was taking her niece to see Ariana. She reportedly died shielding the little girl from flying shrapnel.
Many of the victims were young children, teenagers, and nearby parents waiting to pick up their happy kids. The attack didn't discriminate, and the victims weren't chosen for anything they did. They were just there, enjoying a night out. That complete randomness is part of what made the attack feel so terrifying and personal to so many people.
Meeting Ariana Grande was a dream come true for Georgina Callender. She was just 18 years old. And 14-year-old Nell Jones was a popular girl in her class. Young, promising lives lost forever.
PanAm Flight 103.
I could see a long, thin, black object which had a fire on the upper surface coming in, and it was making its way towards Lockerbie.
The deadliest terror attack in UK history occurred on December 21, 1988, when PanAm Flight 103 exploded over the Scottish town of Lockerbie. The plane had 259 occupants, including families flying for the holidays, an experienced American crew, and 35 students from Syracuse University returning home from a study abroad program. And then there were the indirect victims. You see, debris from the destroyed plane rained down onto the streets of Lockerbie, where citizens were simply going about their lives.
When it hit, it was the most horrendous explosion. And I could hear the tiles on the roof of my house lifting.
The wreckage hit residential streets and homes, exploding into massive fireballs and killing 11 more people. Blame was eventually placed on Libyan nationals, but the victims were everyday people far removed from the turbulent nature of geopolitics.
A Libyan intelligence operative accused of building the bomb that brought down PanAm Flight 103 nearly 34 years ago. He is now in U.S. custody.
The Oklahoma City bombing. Shortly after 9 a.m. on the morning of April 19, 1995, just as people were settling into work in the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, an enormous truck bomb was activated by anti-government extremist Timothy McVeigh. The blast destroyed 1/3 of the building, injuring hundreds and killing 167 people.
I knew it was her right away. I recognized her right away, but I also knew those were the clothes that I put on her that morning and stuff, so I mean, I knew it was her.
The explosion was meant to cause as much damage as possible, and the victims included federal employees, citizens conducting government business, and perhaps most traumatic of all, children attending the building's daycare center. There was no logic to the deaths, and it served as a gutting reminder that terror could strike anywhere and at any time.
Bombing in Oklahoma City was an attack on innocent children and defenseless citizens. It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. 9/11.
They come up to you, they ask you, hey, have you seen my son? Have you seen my husband? And we knew that there was no one alive down there.
The victims of September 11, 2001 were a diverse group of nearly 3,000 people whose lives were taken in an unprecedented act of terrorism on U.S. soil. It's one of the most indiscriminate crimes in modern history, killing anyone who happened to be in the vicinity. Citizens from over 90 countries died in the attacks, their ages ranging from 2 to 85.
These are the faces of those lost on 9/11. More than 2,900 images hanging in a special gallery of the 9/11 memorial.
Workers in the various buildings, first responders, passengers, and crew of the planes, people on the ground. All walks of life were targeted. To make matters worse, thousands more have since died or suffered from illnesses related to toxic exposure at Ground Zero, particularly among first responders and recovery workers. All are now remembered by name at the 9/11 memorial.
Throughout the museum, chilling reminders of the day. Handmade flyers for the missing, a cross emerging from the wreckage. Everyday items simply left behind.
Do you fear attacks of a similar nature? Let us know in the comments below.
The victims of the Oklahoma City bombing have been given not vengeance, but justice.